Hey, what's up guys? I just wanted to do a quick video update and talk about what everybody on the internet's talking about, and that's the rumors regarding the Canon 5D Mark IV. This thing's got the internet in a frenzy. It's about a day away from being officially announced by Canon. So I was actually wrong in my prediction. I predicted that this would be announced in the first week of September. It's actually being announced in the last week of August. So for all of you who said I had no idea what I was talking about, you were obviously right. So the details have kind of come out slowly, but last week a bunch of information came out regarding the video features that were going to be on the 5D Mark IV, and it made a lot of people lose their minds. There was something like over 50 pages of comments on Canon rumors regarding the video features, and you had all the video people who were upset and were completely unimpressed with it because it was going to do 4K at a lower frame rate than what they wanted. It was going to do 120 frames a second, but only in 720 instead of 1080. And some of the other video features that, to be honest with you, I don't completely understand, but the video guys were upset. And so on Canon Rumors, you just had people going back and forth arguing about this stuff. I made a video, but before I could upload it, more information came out, and it was kind of a game changer because I'll be honest, with the initial specs that came out, I was not entirely impressed. Basically, the specs that have come out thus far are that the camera is going to be a 30 megapixel camera, which was a little bit higher resolution than what I was expecting. I thought it would be in the high 20s, like around 28. So it's a little bit higher than what I thought it was going to be. It's going to shoot at 7 frames a second. It's got the Digic 6 Plus processor. The shutter is rated for 150,000 clicks. There was some information floating around that it was at 15 million clicks. That was obviously a typo. It would be nice if it would last for 15 million images, but I just don't think Canon would give us something like that. It's going to have the 61-point AF system that everybody expected with 41 cross type. It's going to have a new noise reduction algorithm, which is kind of interesting that this is listed here because I don't remember that being listed for the 1DX Mark II. And it has me really curious as to how well this is going to perform in low light. The ISO is rated for 100 to 102,400 for the extended ISO. I think natively it'll go to 32,000. It's going to be dust and weather sealed. It's going to have a 2-axis electronic level, GPS, Wi-Fi, NFC. One thing that took a lot of people by surprise, it's going to have a compact flash and an SD card slot instead of a CFast slot. But from looking at some of the forums and stuff from people who are much smarter than I am, they didn't need a CFast slot because of the 4K that they went with. If they had went with the better 4K that the video people would want, they would need the faster CFast card. But since Canon elected not to put that in this camera, I guess it's just not a necessity. So that was the information that came out last week. Now this week, the information that has come out is that the camera is going to have some new features. Now there was a rumor that had come out about a month ago that this 5D Mark IV was going to have something that was a first for Canon DSLRs. And if I remember right, the information was that the feature was something that photographers were going to like, but it was nothing revolutionary. And it sent everybody speculating as to what it was. Well, we've now found out what it is, and it may not be the first camera that's ever had this. It's the first DSLR, as far as I know, that it'll have this feature, and I think it is really a game changer. The rumor is that this new camera is going to have dual pixel RAW. Now, what does that mean? Everybody's been speculating about what it means, but the best consensus that the internet has finally seemed to come to is that it's going to allow you to make adjustments to your focus point after you take the image. Now, how much adjustment you're going to have in there, nobody really knows. But some of the information that had come out was that when you use this dual pixel RAW mode, that your image size would be a 66.9 megabyte image. That's bigger than the 5DSR images. So it's a huge file. And the reason why it's a huge file is because the camera is actually recording information for the way I understand it, 3 separate images so that you can make this adjustment. It's been a little bit confusing because this information was leaked to a website called Nogishita. I apologize, I'm a little bit rusty on my Japanese. But everything has been translated using software, and so the translations are a little bit rough. But basically, dual pixel RAW, it says that it'll record both of one of the normal RAW file of the image and parallax information. That wasn't my inability to read. That's actually how it was worded here on this website. Digital Photo Professional of the dual pixel RAW optimizer in the can 3 of image processing. So that's one of the many translations that are out there. But you know, obviously you're going to have to use Canon's software in order to make these kinds of adjustments. Who knows how long it'll take Adobe to update Lightroom and Photoshop so that we can make any adjustments in there, if ever, because let's face it, Adobe's struggling just to keep Lightroom up and running these days. They seem to be more focused on the mobile app, which that's a whole another story, that I can actually load images faster on the mobile app than I can on my laptop. But this is huge for all types of different photography. Everybody keeps talking about like wedding photographers and portrait photographers who tend to shoot with an extremely shallow depth of field. How much beneficial this would be that images that would otherwise be unusable, you can now save, because you know, if you're shooting at f1.2 or 1.4 and the tip of the nose is in focus and the eyes are just a little bit out of focus, you know, typically that would just be an image that you would just delete. And now with this kind of with this option, you might be able to rescue a image and make it to where, you know, it's a bad image, make it usable. Or if you've got an image that's maybe soft and usable, you can now make it tack sharp and have perfect focus. One of the questions that I have about this, and I have not seen anybody discuss this at all, is if this is going to be able to work in like the AI servo mode, or is it only going to work in the single shot mode? Because let's face it, with a lot of sports photography, we get images that are maybe a little bit too soft, that because the camera is struggling to track subjects as they're running towards us, sometimes the autofocus doesn't keep up. And this would be a really nice feature to just be able to take those images that are a little bit too soft and bring them into being a usable range. Unfortunately, I don't know how well that's going to work, because I think that the ability to make adjustments is going to be very, very small. Another question that I have is, how is this going to fit in the workflow? Because until Adobe does make these updates, you're going to have to take these images into Canon software, and that's a whole nother step. And for me personally, I think it would be very cumbersome to have to go through and bring these images into Lightroom, take them out of Lightroom, back into Canon software, which actually I don't even know if that would work, because it has to be a raw file. So you'd have to bring it in, so you'd have to take the images right into the Canon software and then bring them out and then put them in Lightroom. I don't know, it seems like it's going to be very cumbersome. I was completely pretty much set that this was not the camera for me until this information came out, and now I'm really wondering how well this is going to work. I would like to get my hands on one and test it. Unfortunately, with this technology, I'm going to have Canon software, and so a rental may not work because they won't give you the software when you do a rental. I would just have to hope that Canon would have a download available on their website so that I could actually use this feature. Otherwise, I would be shooting in JPEG, which is typically what I do whenever I get a camera that is fresh out on the market. I just shoot in JPEG, and then that way I can use Lightroom and I don't have to worry about it. But along with this image micro adjustment feature, it's also going to have a bokeh shift, which is going to allow you to adjust the position of the bokeh, and it's also going to have some ghosting reduction, which that's part's pretty self-explanatory. Now, this is not anything new. This has actually been in Lytro cameras in the past. Over on CanonWatch.com, they have an article posted where they're talking about this new technology with Canon, and they actually linked to an article that they wrote back in 2015, September of 2015, that was titled "Canon Patent Combining Phase Detect with Light Field Technology for Accurate Autofocus." And essentially what this article said was that, you know, currently Canon uses phase detection to quickly lock focus, or to quickly obtain focus on your subject, and that it uses contrast detection to get a more accurate and precise focus. Well, with the light field technology, what Canon was doing was they wanted to replace the contrast detection part. So using the light field technology, the phase detect would lock the initial focus, and then the light field would fine tune it, and you'd be able to make those fine tune adjustments in post-processing. So who knows exactly how usable this is going to be, but it is exciting to see Canon innovating and, you know, maybe actually saving what I don't want to say was a doomed camera, but a camera that I think a lot of people have very high expectations for because of the success of the 5D Mark III. And I think that's where the video people are upset, is because when the 5D Mark III came out, it was pretty much by far the best DSLR for shooting video. I think a lot of the video people expected the 5D Mark IV to regain that crown, and this camera is not going to even touch a Sony camera as far as video performance goes, but we'll see how it does for everything else. So the rumored price, I've seen two different numbers floated around, is that it'll come in at $32.99 or $34.99 US dollars for the body only. It's going to come in at $42.99 in Canada and $3,700 in Europe. Apparently it's the lowest priced in the United States, and I guess that has to do with some currency fluctuations. So the camera will be announced tomorrow sometime, and it's already set to be shipped in mid-September. There's also a new 24 to 105 that will be an option to buy with this, and Canon's also expected to announce a new 16 to 35 f2.8 lens this week. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or not. Canon's also going to announce a new Wi-Fi adapter that will come packaged with the 7D Mark II whenever you buy it with the lens kit. Now, this Wi-Fi adapter apparently is only going to be compatible with the 7D Mark II, the 5DS, and the 5DSR, which is kind of unfortunate. But apparently it has to have a compact flash card in order to work. I'm not really sure why, but that's the information that's floating around. But one of the things that this tells us is that Canon has no intentions of releasing an update to the 7D Mark II anytime soon, which is unfortunate because Nikon has just completely leapfrogged the 7D Mark II in terms of being the best crop sensor camera for shooting sports and wildlife. And it's unfortunate because to me this means that Canon's going to stick on their standard 3 to 5 year schedule for an update, which means we're looking at well over a year at least for a 7D Mark II replacement. So one of the big questions that everybody has, and I don't know that Canon's going to answer this tomorrow, is how much dynamic range is this camera going to have? Because that's the big complaint from us Canon shooters. Now, Canon did make some significant upgrades in terms of dynamic range performance for the 80D that was released this year and the 1DX Mark II. They each came up about a stop and a half or so in improvement of dynamic range. So even though they made these big improvements, according to DxOMark, and I know not everybody likes DxOMark, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it kind of is the easiest place to get information that's easily digestible by everybody. But according to DxOMark, the 1DX Mark II now has 13.5 stops of dynamic range, up from 11.8 from the 1DX. But even at the 13.5, that ranks it 36th. So there's 35 cameras that have more dynamic range on the market than the 1DX Mark II, Canon's flagship. The thing is those 35 cameras, many of them have been out for a few years. You've got several cameras by Nikon, basically anything that Sony's put out, including one of their cyber shots is ahead of the 1DX Mark II, I think. You've got some Pentexes. There's a bunch of different cameras on this list that have more dynamic range than the Canon. And so I think what we're going to unfortunately see is going to get released and then everybody else is just going to pull away again. In terms of ISO performance, you know, it looks like the 1DX Mark II got about a third of a stop improvement over the 1DX. Same thing with the 70D to the 80D, about a third of a stop. So I kind of just don't see the 5D Mark IV getting more of an improvement than what the 1DX did. If it did, it's going to put it on the same level or even better in terms of image quality for a lot of things. I really don't see Canon making the 5D Mark IV have better ISO performance or dynamic range than the 1DX Mark II. So I think we're going to be right about 13.5 stops and about a third of a stop improvement in ISO performance. But I can tell you from using the 80D, which is ranked at 13.2 stops of dynamic range, it was actually amazing to go out and use that and see how much ability I had to recover things. I know we should always get the right exposure, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. But at that 13.2 stops that the 80D had, it just blew the 5D Mark III out of the water. So if we get up into that 13 range, it will make a big difference in our ability to do things. So one of the things that had me kind of on the fence about the 5D Mark IV were these rumors floating around about Sony cameras and the new generation's going to come out. You know, I recently used the a6300. I spent a lot of time on it. I'm going to do a comparison video between the 6300 and the 80D because there's not enough reviews of that on YouTube. Unlike a lot of people, I actually kind of think that the a6300 is more than capable for shooting sports. Yes, it's glitchy. I had some focusing problems that I wasn't real happy with, but overall, I think that it's as good as many DSLRs on the market for shooting sports. And the rumor is that Sony is getting ready to come out with 2 cameras that are going to be suited for shooting sports. Now, I kind of wonder if these 2 cameras aren't actually one camera that is kind of getting mixed up by the different sources and they're claiming it's 2 different things. But the rumor is that Sony is going to come out with an A99 Mark II, or version 2, I don't know if they call them Mark IIs, which is going to be a 42 megapixel camera, 499 autofocus points, dual AF. It's going to have the same in-body image stabilization as the A7R II, and it's going to have a dual card slot. Now this is supposed to be an A-mount camera body, and it's supposed to just have the best focusing system of any camera ever. It's supposed to be able to track moving subjects very precisely, and it's just supposed to be an awesome sports camera. But it would prove a lot of people wrong if Sony does do this, including myself, because I pretty much thought Sony was done with the A-mount. But this rumor of this A99 has been floating around for well over a year now, that it's right around the corner, so who knows if it's actually coming out. What I actually think that the camera is going to be is what is rumored to be called the A9. Nobody's really sure what the actual name for this camera is going to be, but it's a camera that sits above the A7 series. That camera is said to be somewhere between 50 to 80 megapixels, depending on which rumor you believe. It's going to shoot 20 frames a second, an unlimited RAW buffer, and some of the rumors are basically saying this is going to be a bombshell on the camera world, that it's just going to be so much better than anything else on the market, especially whenever you're shooting things like sports and wildlife. So like I said, I think that those two rumors are actually one camera body, and the information that is just coming out is some people think it's going to be an E-mount A9, some people think it's going to be an A-mount A99, but the latest rumor is that this will be announced sometime shortly after Photokina. So that's pretty much it as far as the rumors go. Fortunately, we don't have to wait long for the official announcement from Canon, and then from there, just a couple of short weeks until we actually get these cameras out and we'll get some reviews. So what do you guys think? Is the 5D Mark IV going to be a camera for you? Is one of these Sonys that's set to come out going to be the camera for you? What do you guys think of the specs? Leave me a comment below. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.